Welcome to another episode of FBTV. In this week's episode, we have Currie Cup winning coach John Jobson as our VSJ. But for now, let's go straight into the highlights from the past weekend's Score Super Sevens competition. Cut with ball in hand, looking through the half break, offload to probably the quickest man in the field. Nobody's going to stop him. Even jogging, that man is so much faster than I would ever be. Yes, he's good. Here we go, breaking down the flank. St. George's of the attack. Dummy switch, pretty fierce. Hier kom Lange, caught by that man Remark again. Oh, that's a great pop off the deck. Good try, buggers. Here we go again, Remark with ball in hand. Hands off two, offload. Phyllis also has wheels in, out, and he's going to score in the corner. Good boy, Che. Yes, cuts again, looking, goes on the outside, quick fend, cut, that man is so elusive, in, out, and Cut's gonna score another try for False Bay. Here we go, St. George attack, step inside, Southern with the cross cover, pop off the deck. Oh, it's a great try. Congrats to St. George's on winning this year's Sevens competition. To the False Bay Sevens team, unlucky, going down the final 22-26. A hell of effort over the past 6 weeks. This week's episode of VSJ is brought to you by Saggy Stone Beer. On this week's VSJ, we have a very special guest, Currie Cup winning coach, John Jobson. Welcome to FBTV.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Just a couple of questions. So, I've heard two influences you've had were actually Bay members in Basil Bay and Nick Mallet. Just briefly describe how that sort of molded your career.
Yeah, Basil probably molded me more in this direction, you know. Because he used to say at school, you know, if you want to go and do your prep, which is your homework, do your prep. If you want to come and join me for a beer, you can join me for a beer. So he was always this great romantic, you know, you don't rape rugby, you seduce her, you stroke her. Him and my dad were great mates.
Okay.
And they lived across the road from each other, and they were betting the last few years who was going to go first. And my mum saw my dad's lying in bed still sleeping and Basil holding a mirror over his mouth. It's about 3 years ago. He said, just want to check Paul's still going, you know. And so when Basil died, I got a message from Martin, his son, who said, Paul's won. Which I thought was quite sweet. Basil's love of attractive rugby. I mean, it's something that it's imbued at UCT, False Bay, Bishops, you know, it's just all the same style.
So, yeah, for sure.
I think in those days, he had before professionally, he made a tremendous influence on lots of people, lots of players. And then I had lunch with Nick last week and I said, you know, for all your faults, if you were a Springbok coach in a week, you could change it. Okay, what faults? He's the most arrogant bastard I've ever come across. Listen, he's a hell of a competitor, but he's actually, underneath, he's quite a sort of soft guy, but he's a really good thinker on rugby. You know, I had lunch with him last week and he just said, you know, he just was very astute in how quickly rugby's changing, stuff like the line speed, how the breakdown's changing. So I said to him, you know, you've been ridiculous. You've been 6 years since you last coach. You're getting too old. You know, you have to get back into it. And he said, well, you know how much I earn from SuperSport? So that's not the point. But anyway, he's Nick and I'm quite Nick. I'm quite good mates with him. He's deep down quite a good actor.
Right. And
then, very well hidden.
And then just obviously a few years ago, club rugby was the breeding ground for provincial and higher honours. Yeah. How often or how likely is it for a club rugby player to now make it to high honours?
Yeah, look, listen, you get clubs and you get clubs. And I'm not saying because on this thing, there's False Bay is another level, you know, and Hammies, you know, Stellenbosch, obviously, they're sort of another stratosphere of players where those guys are all pretty much ready for provincial. It's the less, the sort of, you know, say False Bay national champions. So it's the less, you know, the sort of bottom of the rest of the, other than the top 4 or 5 clubs. Those guys who work all day, they probably haven't got a chance at gym. They rush from a factory. They 90 minutes on the field a week, trying to compete with guys who, you know, 6 or 7 hours a day of rugby. Sure. They're professionals, and that becomes, there's a danger. And this is why the Varsity Cup and this Gold Cup are so important. There's a danger that we end up with rugby like American football, where nobody plays it socially, because the professional sport's so far evolved. You can't play. You know, if you see if you see it on amateur, it's Jennifer Aniston playing touch in the New York. Nobody plays contact football outside of the professional. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So that's why this bridge and this Gold Cup and Varsity Cup are so important. Sure. Yeah. And also, it's a good way to get guys back in the net who Because my big issue was that if you didn't play Province under 19, then you were harder to play around 21 or Province schools. And those guys had the tracksuits tend to keep the tracksuits,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And I think suddenly you've seen a bit more opening than there was, say, 3 or 4 years ago, I think. But it is hard. You have to be at a really big club. And that's the truth, unfortunately.
And then I'm so glad you mentioned tracksuits. Do you have any Province kit in the car for me by any chance?
We haven't got any kit anymore. We haven't.
And then final, just because your beer is fuller, traditional Saggy Stone half-half.
That's exactly what I didn't want. I'm going to go to the gym now. Cheers, boys.
Shot Dobbo.
Very nice.
Cheers for now.
Ciao, boys. It was very nice.
Over the past weekend, Volkswagen held their annual awards dinner at Moyo in Kirstenbosch Gardens. Congrats to all the prize winners as well as all the buggers who brought dates out of their league. From the dinner, we get this week's Fierce Clip of the Week, brought to you by Marion Wells. In this week's club news, a massive congratulations to Niaz Johnson and Justin Phillies making the Western Province Sevens team. Also, Remark Smith making the Western Province Dream Team, and our very own Peter Bernardi, coach of the Dream Team. Well done, buggers. Once again, thank you to Daisy's Business Solutions for your ongoing support for False Bay TV. That's all for this week's episode of False Bay TV. If you're looking to play some decent ruggers next year, get down to False Bay as pre-season started last week. For more details, check out our Facebook page. Cheers for now.